Hey guys, welcome to the CCI Academy. My name is Jooste, and for this kind of module, we'll be talking about kids worship and kind of why it's important. And I want to share with you some practicalities around kids worship for your kids ministry. My wife and I are part of Grace Generation Church in Banbridge in Northern Ireland, and I have the privilege of being part of the worship team over there. And also from time to time, I help out on the kids worship team. So some of the things I want to share with you guys are just sort of things that I have sort of learned over time, and and have sort of seen a few things that I think can work quite well. So hopefully you guys will find this useful. Some of the things we'll cover today is first of all is just to talk about why do we do kids worship? Why is it important? The second one is some practicalities around kids worship. So just sort of a few kind of pointers and I guess some hints and tips of things that I think can be useful. The third one is YouTube versus band. So when to use YouTube and when to use your own kids worship team, or even maybe people from your main worship team. And then finally, I just want to leave you guys with some resources, some useful links to some YouTube pages of where you can get some more resources on kids worship and things that you can use for your own kids ministry. So jumping right in, first of all, why do we do kids worship? Well, the first point is that I think it's as important as your main worship in your main church. I think quite often, if we're not careful, we can tend to focus almost like most of our effort and time on making sure that the main worship team has got everything that they need. They've got all the right people, all the right resources. And they're well rehearsed, and so forth. But we tend to maybe sometimes neglect the kids worship team. So I want to say the first point is that there should be no difference. I think, that it's your kids worship team is as important as your main worship team, and hence also the almost like the power of praise and worship, what it brings to your church, in both settings, in your kids church and your main church is the same. It's as powerful and as effective in both sort of settings. So there should be no difference, in terms of the importance, I think. The second one, about kids worship, why it's important is I think it's on your kids church program on Sundays, it's just a great way to kind of make kids familiar of what praise and worship is. It might just be that, not all kids have, might be exposed to praise and worship music at home or, maybe where they're growing up. So, kind of introducing kids to praise and worship on Sundays, in the kids program, it's just a really, really beautiful way of getting them that exposure. So it's the second one is around familiarity and kind of, getting the kids to kind of sort of understand, oh, that's what, praise and worship is. And I can sort of also start feeling that the atmosphere is changing, when I'm listening to those kind of songs and music. The third one is, it's around kind of helping kids to also sort of understand that there's power in praise and worship. And it's not just pretty songs that we sing and some cool dance moves, but that there's actual real meaning behind the words. So just kind of helping them to understand that as well. And then the fourth one, why do we do kids worship? It's fun, it's just a really, I think a simple thing to do in your kids program to bring in a lot of fun in your kids program. So kids love singing, they love dancing, I think it's just a great thing to kind of do. It's almost like it's like a great tool to make sure that it's part of your kids program. And I've heard of so many kids that, kind of talk about, the worship element in kids church. They go away and they still sing the songs throughout the day, or they want to become like a drummer, or they want to become a guitarist or a singer. They get inspired by that as well. So, kids love it. And that's also why it's important. So some practicalities around kids worship. So just a few things I just want to share with you guys. First of all, make sure you plan for your kids worship kind of element for Sundays. And I think what I mean by that is, you'll have a kids program sort of set aside for Sunday, and just make sure that you sort of allocated time for your kids worship bit, and kind of roughly when that's going to take place and happen. If I can give you a practical example, sometimes it might be that you might need people from your main worship team that might even be still playing and singing in kind of main church, but you would need them to help out with kids church as well. So just make sure that you plan that accordingly beforehand and kind of coordinate that, so that you might have some kids church activities happening, and at a certain time we need the kind of the kids worship team to sort of be in place. So all of that takes a little bit of planning and a bit of coordination beforehand. The second one is around kind of how you lead your kids. Kids love singing, they love dancing, but they also love copying and kind of replicating and sort of just observing and doing whatever they see in front of them. So if you have someone that is not going to be very animated and they're not going to maybe know how to engage with the kids, it can kind of fall flat on its face as well. Kids will just stand there and, they won't really take the initiative, I think, to kind of just sort of start singing and start dancing. They will just kind of do whatever, I guess you could call it, the kids leader will do, sort of in front of them. So really make sure you have people there that's, just animated and know how to kind of talk to kids, which I think is a skill set that's actually quite, it's not that easy at times. You think I've got my own kids and I know how to talk to them and how to be playful with them. But when you stand in front of a room full of kids, if it doesn't come easily to you, it can get a little bit awkward. So definitely make sure you kind of have the right type of leadership. You have a kids team that, are really up for it and then know how to engage with the kids and how to make sure that they kind of take part in praise and worship. So that's the second one, is around kind of leadership and the way you lead them. The third one is, it's just, again, I'm speaking clearly, making sure you really articulate, what you're going to do. I think in main church, sometimes when we enter into praise and worship, it's almost like there's this, almost this assumption people just know what's going to happen now. People maybe stand up on their feet automatically, and they just, start singing along. But with kids, it takes a little bit more kind of like sort of, I guess you have to give them instructions and kind of speak clearly, articulate well, and tell them what's going to happen and so forth. So, and I guess also give them actions, give them, be animated, when you communicate with the kids. And then the fourth one, make sure that there's a fun environment. We talk about praise and worship here, but, kids love singing, they love dancing, as we said before. But you really make sure that there's a fun element to this as well, which I think is very, very important. And I think most kid churches are very good with that. They kind of really grab hold of that, and they try and do lots of silly things to kind of just make sure that the kids laugh and they can be engaged. But I think the serious aspect of kind of praise and worship, that will kind of come automatically. I think that's, if you want to call it that, I don't know if there's a better term for that, but it's as you worship, the atmosphere will change. And I think I already believe that kids can feel that as well, that there's definitely a sort of a change in the atmosphere. But as a kids team and as a kids worship team, make sure you keep that, keep that atmosphere as a fun, sort of lively atmosphere. And then the fifth one is make sure that the songs that you pick are relevant to the age group. So you'll probably have a good idea of the ages of the kids that come along to kids church. Just make sure that you pick songs that's sort of easy for them to sing. Not all kids can read, so if you're going to use song words, just make sure that there's maybe some, I don't know, cool colors or cool actions or people dancing, whether it be a video or even on the stage that kids can kind of copy and look at and sort of get something from that as well. So it's all about kind of what's relevant for the kids that come to kids church. And then the final point is just around the number of songs that you do. In Grace Generation Church at the moment, we tend to do 2 songs on Sundays, and we've sort of allocated time for that, and we think that works perfectly fine. And but of course, it just depends on how much time you have. I definitely think it doesn't have to be as long as the main set of songs in your main church, because it is kids after all. So, and I guess it's to do with their kind of attention span as well. So I think 2 songs is kind of like a good number. But by all means, if you feel that you can do more, then you can do more. But I think usually 2 is around kind of the norm. maybe occasionally you can do 3. I think it's also important to note that it's not just praise and worship that you're doing with the kids. There's usually there's a teaching element as well, and some other activities that the kids do. So so praise and worship is kind of one part of your kids ministry program on a Sunday. Okay, and then I just want to talk about the third thing here is kind of YouTube versus band. So when to use YouTube. So YouTube obviously is very, very popular, and it's very easy to go to YouTube and find songs and just play those songs on Sundays. We do that in Grace Generation Church. It's and it's kind of been working really well. We've managed to find some songs that we felt, kind of just, I think, we really love those songs and it worked well with the kids as well. But I think it's important to kind of sort of try and distinguish when to use YouTube and when do you want to kind of use your own worship team or even a kids worship team. So definitely, use YouTube when you don't have a band, when you don't have, a kids worship team, or even people from your main worship team that can actually come and help out. So by all means, use what you've got and find kind of those appropriate songs from YouTube. I think what helps is having a big screen or some form of a screen, so that kids can see, I guess, if it's a YouTube video, that they can see the colors clearly, and maybe there's some lyrics and there's some dancing and so forth. So, having a screen, even if you have a kind of a big size TV or something, but something that kids can kind of at least sort of see from a distance. And also when to use YouTube is, if you're pressed for time in the week and you've got to put a kids program together for Sunday, you don't have time to talk to your main worship team to see if they can help out, or even maybe you've got some younger people that are part of your kids worship team, but you just don't have time to practice and rehearse the songs. By all means, then you just kind of get some cool songs from YouTube and you've got your kind of praise and worship sort of element all kind of sorted for Sunday. So those are a couple of things I just wanted to mention on when to use YouTube. When to use a band, this kind of sort of seems I guess obvious, but it's when you have confident singers and musicians. I guess sometimes kids worship can be seen as a place where it's almost like a bit of a training ground for people. They can kind of, use it as to get more familiar with, their craft, their singing or playing. I will actually say this, that, it's almost like, it can be, but I think it's as important to make sure that your singers and your people who play instruments, that they are still confident, in their ability and what they do and how they lead. So, if you have I guess a worship team rehearsal night in the week for your main worship team, try and encourage your kids worship team to come along to that so that they can kind of, I guess, learn and get better at their crafts as well. And really, try and work with them to be confident when it comes to leading the kids on Sundays, that they kind of know how to start the song and they know how to finish the song. So when you have those things in place, by all means, definitely use your own worship team, your kids worship team. And that's, I would lean towards that more than using YouTube. And I think that's just a great thing to start kind of doing that in it. I think if you have a lot of creative people, on your teams, it's just a great way for people to start sort of thinking more creatively and thinking, okay, how can we make this better? What almost like original content can we bring to kind of kids church, and it might just inspire people to start writing their own songs and so forth. So, but definitely important to kind of make sure that your singers, your musicians are confident in their, call it their craft, being singing or playing an instrument. Alrighty, then I want to leave you guys with some resources. So these are some YouTube pages that we've used that kind of point you to some kind of useful kids worship tools and songs and loads of cool stuff. And so and this is just a couple here that you guys can see. I'll share that with you maybe through a document as well. There's plenty of information and resource out there to kind of use for your kids program. What I'll try and do is I'll try and highlight some of the songs that we do for kids worship on Sundays, songs that we think work quite well, and songs that we've used in the past, just in case you guys need a starting point. and you need to pick a few songs just to kind of get going. Some songs are also easier to play when you have live and real instruments than other songs. What you guys might find is that there's a lot of kids worship songs out there that are very produced and definitely done in a studio, in a recording studio, and it's very difficult to kind of recreate that with live instruments sometimes. Because a lot of those songs have a lot of quirky and really cool and funky sounds, which is amazing for kids. But when you only have an acoustic guitar and a beatbox, it's a bit of a different sort of a vibe to try and recreate that. So, but there are definitely songs there that you can do with live instruments. And I would actually even tend to not overthink that too much. We can tend to look at these amazing songs that's been produced for kids church, for kids worship that are out there, and think, okay, there's no way we can replicate that or recreate that. But that should not be the focus. I think the focus is that kids love singing, they love dancing, and I think we are all constantly surprised by how easy it is for kids to sing along and dance along to kind of almost any form of music. So I think as long as you kind of bring music to the table, I think the kids will just jump on board with that. And if you can lead that well as well and make it like engaging for the kids, then yeah, I think that's going to be a huge success. So and that's it, guys. So as I said, it's a very short module on kids worship, but I hope you guys found that useful. If you guys have any further questions on this, please do reach out to myself, or I can find out someone that might know more than me, maybe even people from the actual kind of kids team. I know that they, they're amazing and they do so many cool things on Sundays. So, but yeah, this was just kind of more about kind of the kids worship side. So hope it was useful, guys, and enjoy the rest of the CCI Academy. And yeah, take care. Bye-bye.